Alrighty, so today we're going to finish up the review for match week number 17 in terms of the Saturday night action. And there's only 5 games that we're going to look at instead of the usual 6 because there's 13 games, which means this review should be a little bit shorter than your usual part 2 review, though 2 of those games involving my team. And when I talk about my team in the review, it usually is a little bit longer compared to if I'm just talking about 2 teams that I don't support. And one of those is the game between FC Dallas versus Nashville that kicks off this review. And Nashville, of course, they continue to keep pace with Cincinnati in terms of that battle for the top spot and also that supporter shield spot because right now these 2 teams are the top 2 teams in the supporter shield standing, and they were able to go on the road in a tough place to play against Dallas and able to walk away with a 2-1 victory. Now, early on, first of all, this again is a match that was once again delayed due to inclement weather. I mean, I had a feeling with the way that if the game in Austin was delayed by inclement weather, most likely this game was going to be the case. Even though I know Austin and Dallas is not close to each other, it's close enough in terms of vicinity where there could be a possibility that we could see this one be delayed because of weather, and it was. So the kickoff was delayed to 8 p.m. But in the third minute, Velasco was struck the post from long range, and it would be that kind of night for Dallas in this one. They had their moment in this one, but unable to find at least the more clinical finishing in this one compared to Nashville. But Nashville does take the lead in 9 minutes in, and yeah, this is unfortunate for Noah Norris starting his second. Or actually making his second appearance and making his first start for FC Dallas in this one. I mean, as a youngster, you always want to score a goal that is going to be something to remember for the rest of your career. But I don't think for Noah Norris, this is what they mean by scoring your first goal that you will always remember because, yeah, it's got to suck for the youngster in his second appearance to put the ball in the net, and he put it in the wrong net there. So, yeah, that give Nashville a 1-0 lead. Pass then denied Mule from close range, as I thought Nashville was looking threatened on the transition, which is exactly what I think every team needs to watch out for because yeah, Dallas, they were giving a little bit too much space for Nashville to work on the transition. Though that being said, Dallas did get the equalizer in the 25th minute as O'Brien would score from Farfan and Quignon. Now there was definitely a question whether or not if this was offside, especially on I think on the development on the attack. There was a question whether or not if Farfan was actually in an onside position, and it was very close. I mean, I think I was kind of surprised it was they didn't even go to VAR, or at least the referee didn't go to the VAR monitor to look at. But they said it was a good goal, and that of course ties the game up at 1 apiece, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half because there was really not much that was happening for the rest of the half. Now in the second half, Mukhtar would heads it wide from the cross has once again not much chances coming out of the second half, though Mule did drive one that goes wide from the cross in the 65th minute. Before in the 71st minute, Ferreira would put it wide as that was one of the best opportunity for Dallas, and Jesus Ferreira definitely had some chances in this one, and some of these chances you are definitely expecting him to bury it. But instead, in the 77th minute, Nashville retake the lead, and who else to retake the lead than their superstar Hani Mukhtar? I mean, to show you why Hani Mukhtar won the MVP last year, this is why. I mean, he just went beast mode here, took on a couple of FC Dallas defender, actually split 2 FC Dallas defender to go through and basically took Martinez. So in the process, I mean, he absolutely done Martinez to a point where I definitely send my condolence for Jose Martinez there, and this is the Jose Martinez for Dallas, not the one for the Philadelphia Union, because again, yeah, that was just that has to suck if you're a defender. But for Hani Mukhtar, again, there's a reason why he won the MVP last season, and I won't be surprised he might be in contention again. I mean, it's been a long time since we have seen a player win back-to-back MVP award, but Hani Mukhtar is definitely making the case. I mean, it's just been an incredible year once again, carrying this Nashville team on his back and scoring those crucial goals. Fiera then on the other end puts it wide from close range before Quignon would heads it wide from the corner as Dallas was pressing for the late equalizer, and Nashville kind of started to go into their usual low block that we usually see under Gary Smith, especially on the road trying to hang on for this road win. Jungkook would then hit one right to Willis before Fiera would also hit one right to Willis. Again, Jesus Ferreira, he had a lot of chances in this one. You would expect him, with how lethal he's been this season, to bury one. And then Willis would deny Schaffelberg, or actually, I'm sorry, it wasn't Willis, it was Pass, the one that denied Schaffelberg. Got the wrong goalkeeper there. But he denied Schaffelberg there, but this one actually bounced right to Gregush. And Gregush, his shot was actually deflected, but it looked like, even with the deflection, it was going to deflect it in, and it was going to be 3-1 for Nashville. Fortunately for Dallas, it went wide there, but unfortunately for Dallas, they ran out of time in terms of getting themselves the equalizer. As in the end, Nashville walk away with a 2-1 win. Shots in this one, 14 shots for the 7 that Nashville has. Both teams had 3 shots on goal, 2 shots off target for the 6 that Dallas had, 5 shots that was blocked for the 2 that Nashville has, and possession-wise, dead even at 50%. So, yeah, again, for Nashville, a big road win for them to keep pace with Cincinnati in terms of that battle for the top spot in the East and also the supporter shield standings. But for Dallas, it was not a bad game for them, but when you face against a good opponent like Nashville, you gotta bury those chances. And the fact that they didn't do so, especially on Jesus Ferreira part, yeah, Dallas will be very very annoyed about that. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next match is Minnesota and Toronto. So the Loons again, they continue to struggle at homes. It's hard to believe that the only home win that they got this season, I was actually in person for that game when they beat the Dynamo. So that tells me that maybe I should just move to Minnesota and maybe just attend every single game, home game at Allianz Field, so that the Loons can get more wins at home. Because while I'm usually the one that seems to be kind of a bad luck charm, whenever I go to Quakes game, I know the Quakes always lose. That's kind of the opposite when it comes to Minnesota. But all kidding aside, in this game, I think the Loons were kind of a little fortunate to get a point out of this one, because for the first 60 minutes of this game, and especially after when they went down 1-0, this was probably the most flat performance I've seen the Loons has had. Probably even more flatter than the game that they had against Dallas back in April. And I mentioned how that game, that was a game that I don't even kind of want to mention that game, but it feels like every time when you see this team just go through a moment where just nothing clicking on the attack, it just makes me want to make that comparison of that game. That again, we should not really go too much into detail of that game, other than the fact that it was on par, one of the worst game alongside of the Cascadia Derby this weekend of MLS this season. Now, early on, not much happened in the first 10 minutes. In fact, the first shot didn't came until the 9th minute when Marshall Rutti would puts it high from long range. And then Dane Sinclair would deny Benedeski from close range. I thought it was a bright start for Toronto, and I thought it was another slow start for the Loons in this one. Second game in a row, they kind of came out flat in this one. The shots were 4-1 for Toronto up to that point. Fragapani had a shot that was blocked off the line, and this kind of was the big moment for the Loons to get a goal, especially for Franco Fragapani. Still have not got a goal this season in league play. Though again, this probably shouldn't have happened if Johnson didn't just give the ball away to Minnesota. And as much as Sean Johnson, there's been times where he has kind of showed that flashes brilliance that he has with NYCFC. Man, there's been times where he does that, like that he definitely got away with that one. And then Sunbin would win beast mode, but he puts that one high on the curler. But I just still feel like it was just way too flat for this Loons attack. Like, they would just be very slow, so many sideways passes. There's just no urgency that was shown by this team. And there's no urgency that is shown when Boxall would actually be making a run and puts it wide from long range. And I know Michael Boxall at times had to make those crazy run going for on the attack, but yeah, that again, when your defender are making a good run to try to shoot from range, there's some serious problem with your attack. And again, there was some serious problem for this Loons attack, at least for the first 60 minutes of this one. And then Insigne would pulls it wide from close range, and we head to halftime. Unsurprisingly, scoreless between Toronto and Minnesota. Now, in the second half, again, I thought there was a little bit more urgency that was starting to show for the Loons, but still, the final ball was not there for this team. Kerr would then hits one right to Dane Sinclair, but then in the 59th minute, Toronto takes the lead. It's Insigne scoring from Larea and Benedeski to make it 1-0 in favor of TFC. That is the first goal for Lorenzo Insigne since April. Again, it's been a rough season for Lorenzo Insigne, especially for the two Italian superstar Bernardeschi and Insigne. But that's got to feel good for Insigne to finally get himself back on the score sheet. Though Sun Bin almost responds, and one thing about this Minnesota team is that they have had a habit in terms of instantly response, at least in the last two games, and I thought this was one of those moments as he was in on goal there, but he missed wide there. I mean, that's one that Sunbin's got to put that one on target at least. That was not a good miss there from him. Trap then puts one into the wonder wall, but then in the 64th minute, it finally happened. El Rey is summoned as Reynoso is subbed into this game. It was a standing ovation. 19,000 inside Allianz Field was cheering when he was summoned in, and that energy definitely was inserted in this attack because after this, I thought Minnesota started to really attack with purpose. But first, Larea did hit one right to Dane St. Clair before Long they missed an absolute sitter from close range. Yeah, this was definitely one of the worst game that Long they play in this one, and again, that's one that he's got to bury it with how good he's been so far this season. But I also thought that Reynoso has definitely put a fire to this team. I mean, you can definitely see that there's definitely more creativity and guys are able to show that urgency, but also what Reynoso brings to the table. He basically attract all the defender while other guys are getting themselves in open space, and I think that was kind of what's missing for this team. And again, this is definitely good news for Minnesota because we know that this attack is clearly built on Reynoso, and it's kind of a miracle the fact that they survived this long without Reynoso and still be above the red line. But it's always great to see that he's now back in the team. And although I don't think he's going to be 90 minutes fit, at least for these next couple of games, man, he definitely injected life on this attack that desperately needed, knowing they're 1-0 down at home. Johnson would then deny Reynoso from close range. I mean, if Reynoso scored there, I mean the whole stadium would erupt. Before he robbed Longwane from close range, but then in the 88th minute, Minnesota got the equalizer. It's Kervin Arriaga that gets the equalizer. It was a fortunate goal for Minnesota because it took a couple of deflection, but again, you just had a sense the pressure was building. Minnesota was really pressing to get the equalizer, and they got it there. And then Trapp would slice it just wide from close in the second minute of stoppage time. And yeah, in the end, it was 1-1 in this one. Shots in this one, 20 shots compared to 10 that Toronto has. 4 shots on goal compared to 5 that TFC had. Most of those 20 shots came when Reynoso was summoned into this one because, in the first half, they barely register any shots throughout this one. 10 shots off target for the 1 that TFC had. 4 shots that was blocked for the 6 that Minnesota has. And possession-wise, dead even at 50% for both of these teams. So yeah, again, it's kind of frustrating because again, it's another draw at home. This team still has had problem in terms of winning at home, but I think the positive you got to say about this team is the fact that in the last couple of games the attack definitely has woken up, and they have kind of ran into some unfortunate situation, whether it's the post that got in the way or they ran into an opposition goalkeeper that was on his game. But now that with Reynoso back into the team, and even if he's not going to go full 90 at least until July, it definitely injects some energy to this team, and that there's hope that things maybe could start to turn around for this Minnesota team, and that this is kind of the moment where say, well, we're now finally ride out this storm and are able to still be above the red line now that Reynoso is back. Hopefully this team, of course, could make a run, and especially a certain guy that I call Timu Puki could potentially be linked with this team in the future and maybe be the guy that could score the goal for this team. I would say that as much as it doesn't look like there's optimism, it seems like there could be potentially optimism for this team. But yeah, again, it's another draw for them. But for TFC, again, it's got to be very frustrating. Like I know usually when you're on the road getting out a point, it's not a bad thing. But when you give up a goal late like that, and especially I've said this before and I'll say it again, when you're on the road and you basically decide to just kind of bunker and just kind of waste time, most time or not, it's not going to work out. And that's kind of what TFC did late in this game, and they definitely did not do a good job did that. I mean, they were letting the Loons had a lot of space to operate, and that Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be a big surprise that for them to try to bunker and trying to hold on to that 1-0 lead, and they couldn't do so in this one. With that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last three games to finish off match week number 17. So moving on, in the next game, we got St. Louis versus Houston, and St. Louis has continued to be rolling in these last couple of games after getting a relatively comfortable 3-0 win against the Houston Dynamo. And one thing you definitely don't want to allow St. Louis to in a game is give up early goals. And the Dynamo didn't get the memo of that because just 7 minutes in, they gave up a penalty as Chase Gasper brought down Vasilev in the box, which Leuven steps up and takes the penalty, and you know he's not going to miss, and he buries that one to give St. Louis a 1-0 lead. And already I'm thinking, well, yeah, this looks like it could potentially be over because again, when you give up a go early to St. Louis, and at least in their young MLS life, whenever St. Louis gets the lead, most of the time they are well, not just most, but pretty much all the time that they're gonna win this game. Bear did try to answer, but he hits it right to Berkey before Bloom puts it wide from close. Steris then hits it wide from the corner in the 17th minute. Before we fast forward into the 5th minute stoppage time, again, it was kind of frantic in the early part of this game, though it did kind of calm down and we didn't really had a chance during the 17 all the way up to the 5th minute of stoppage time. And in the 5th minute stoppage time, Clark would deny Leuven in the box, and then this is where things get really heated, and this is definitely one of the big talking point of this game. So it kind of all started when Franco and Bloom was definitely being unpleasant to each other. There was some pushing and shoving between both of those players, and then it was on after that. I mean, it was a mass confrontation for both of these teams. Something tells me on the middle of the week, Disco is definitely going to hand out some warning and maybe even some fine for mass confrontation after this one. But yeah, on the scuffle, Franco was actually shown a red, but they did go to VAR to see whether or not if Franco did not commit a violent contact, despite the fact that he clearly put his hand on Giacchini. Now, I feel like this play is kind of similar to what we saw with the Dynamo just a couple of days ago against Vancouver, where you know how Quinones, of course, got sent off after he basically tried to retaliate on Laporta. Now he didn't really put too much hands into Laporta's neck, but you know how Laporta kind of play acted a little bit and just kind of bait him into a red card. This looked like it was exactly the same thing with Giacchini. Giacchini was clearly trying to bait the referee to send Ivan Franco off, and the referee took the bait, just like what we saw a couple of days ago. Now the difference is they did go to VAR and overturn this, and it just makes me wonder. Well, you know, if this was overturned, then you might as well just kind of overturn the one we saw on Wednesday too. Again, inconsistency in pro. That doesn't really go to get her ever. And that yeah, in this one, I mean I just think that for me, I will say that they should have upheld held it because yes, I know Giacchini basically kind of embellished a little bit there. But again, you when you're a player, you shouldn't be have to get to a situation where it gets to that. And you know, Ivan Franco, I know it was the heat of the moment, that but you just cannot put hands to the opponent, even if you didn't do it on purpose. Yeah, the league has really trying to hammer down that, and that again. I think it's kind of a little surprising that they did of course overturn it, but nevertheless, after that ugly scene, they did blow for the halftime whistle because you know the referee was just thinking that yeah, let's get to halftime. Let's have both of these teams to kind of have cooler heads prevail heading into the second half, and it kind of worked because we didn't really see a that this kind of instant boil over into the second half. But what we did see is St. Louis getting that second goal in the second half as Thomas Oshchuk would score from Bartlett and Leuven to make it 2-0 in favor of St. Louis. It was a great free kick set up there for St. Louis. Franco then hits one right to Berkey. Franco, of course, every time he touched the ball, he was rightfully booed by the St. Louis faithful. Berkey then denied Skier from close range, and I thought to the Dynamo credit, they haven't give up. I mean, they were pushing to try to make this interesting. Oferson would blast it high from long range before Jackson would put it wide from close range. But then in the 81st minute, penalty was once again given to St. Louis, and this time they go to VAR to see whether or not if Steris brought down Jackson in the box, and they and he did. So yeah, the call was overturned. It was a penalty for St. Louis. Now Leuven was going to take the penalty, but then Giacchini, he was insist that he was going to take the penalty, and as Leuven was about to take it, really at the last second, he says, "Well, fine, Giacchini, you can take this penalty." Now I have seen this before, where when you have some disagreement of who takes a penalty, it usually doesn't end well. And I think for Giacchini, fortunately for him, that it did went well because he buries that one to make it 3-0. But I kind of question of the fact that why did Giacchini really wants to take that penalty, because it's not like Giacchini is going through a goal drought. He has scored this season recently, so that's kind of interesting to kind of find out, and probably we won't find out because maybe this is gonna bury in the back page because of the fact that St. Louis was already on their way to win the game. But yeah, that was kind of interesting to see. But again, Giacchini when it was being brave there to try to take that penalty away from Leuven, who really at the last second he decided that yeah, he'll give it to them. But I know deep in his mind he was probably a little annoyed because as he got his penalty taken away there. But yeah, that made it 3-0. Berkey then denied Bartlow from close, and then Jackson would hit it right to Willis in the third man stoppage time. As in the end, St. Louis gets the 3-0 win. Shots in this one: 11 shots compared to 16 that Houston has. 4 shots on goal compared to 5 that St. Louis had. 4 shots off target compared to 6 that Houston has. 2 shots out was blocked with the 6 that Houston has in possession wise. 49% possession compared to the 51% possession that the Dynamo has in this game. And for the Dynamo, they didn't play bad in this one. But again, it's kind of the same story I said about the other Texas team with Dallas. They just didn't take their opportunity. And when you're the inferior team and you're the underdog, you got to put away those chances. And the fact that the Dynamo didn't is the reason why they lost this one. But that being said, moving on into the next game. Speaking of a team that needs to take advantage of their chances, that's what Colorado is thinking about right now. And I gotta say, I think the Quakes once again got away with this one. And we talked about how the Quakes have really struggled whenever they play against Colorado at the Sporting Goods Park. And when I look at how this game is, even when the Rapids were down to 10 men, they were still the better team, and I thought the Quakes were gonna eventually do their usual thing, give up a goal, and once again lose against Colorado. But I will also say this: Daniel it started to look like a bona fide decent goalkeeper for the Quakes that they have not had since David Bingham a couple of years ago. And I know it's just a small sample size; it's only 2 games, but man, in this game, just like the game against Seattle, he stole a point for the Quakes in this one. Now, early on, Nicholson had a shot that was deflected, but it was deflected, but it was put it wide from close range before Daniel would absolutely raw Bassett on a point blank header there. And again, it was a strong start for the Rapids. They were pressing for the lead. It was another slow start for the Quakes, which is nothing new because that's kind of how it is with this team. Not only this season, but that's just the way how the Quakes do. Whenever they're on the road, they always start off slow. I don't usually remember for many times where the Quakes can get off to a fast start and score an early goal on the road. But in the 31st minute, Rosenberry would hit one right to Daniel before the first shot of the game for the Quakes did see them hit the post. It was Kikanovic, the one that was victimized by the post from long range. I mean, the last time the Quakes would hit the post in this one. In the 39th minute, Bassett would hit it wide from the corner, and we head to halftime scoreless, despite the fact that the Rapids had a couple of decent chances to get the lead. Now, in the second half, Daniel would denied Acosta from close, and once again, I wrote Daniel is single-handedly bailing this Quakes back line because I thought the back line for this Quakes team was very shaky, and that there was times where they were giving some really good opportunity for the Rapids to get the lead, but Daniel making some big save in this one. And then we get to some controversy because in this game and also in the last one that I'll talk about, there were definitely some controversial refereeing decision. And the controversy with this is Bombito, of course, getting a second yellow card. But the question is, was that even a foul in the first place? Because when Bombito basically trying to make the tackle on Marie, I thought that was clean. I didn't think he got anything off of Marie. And if anything, if that was a foul, I didn't think that was warrant a second yellow card, but apparently that referee said it is, and yeah, the Rapids were down to 10 men. But the good news for the Rapids is that that's not the end of it because again, the Quakes they suck playing down with a man. I almost feel like they suffer a Minnesota United syndrome in this game when they were up a man and they didn't do any much of it. Well, they did do something because just 12 minutes after they had that man advantage, the Post would deny the Quakes again. This time it's obviously the latest one that's been victimized by the Post. And I also wrote, despite the Quakes not really doing much on the attack, they at least have created chances that hits the post and kind of being unlucky because of it. Though that being said, in the 66th minute, a penalty was given to the Rapids, and this is where we get to the other controversial call of this game, where VAR deemed that Barrio was brought down by Rodriguez in the box. I don't think this was the right call. And I know this might sound biased because I'm a Quakes fan, but I do think that originally Barrios actually got a yellow card for embellishment. And when I look at the replay, and I look at multiple replays, I just don't think how they can overturn that call. Yes, maybe you could argue that Rodriguez maybe step on Barrios a little bit, but it just looked like the way that Barrios kind of went down the ground, it looked like it was just a clear signal that he trying to dive to get a penalty. And again, the other important thing is the original call was that embellishment call, and I didn't think that they were going to overturn it, but they did. So yeah. That's gotta suck for the Quakes again. This is once again one of those nights. Looks like they're gonna get screwed over by VAR, but Daniel says no because he denied Roland from the spot here. I mean, it wasn't really a good penalty from Connor Roland, but I mean, a ball don't lie. I mean, that was like when Daniel saved that one. In my mind, immediately ball don't lie because yeah, that's kind of how it is. The ball simply don't lie in terms of the fact that was definitely not a penalty, and that yeah, Daniel with a big save here to deny Roland from the spot, and then he would deny Barrios again from close range in the 73rd minute, and I also wrote you wouldn't know that the Rapids were down a man because with the amount of chances that they had, and just the only reason why this was at 0-0 was because Daniel was bailing this team out again. Though that being said, in the 90th minute, Acapo would hit it high from close range before Espinoza had a shot that was crucially blocked by the Rapids. Rodriguez then heads it wide from the corner, and really, as we get into stoppage time, I feel like the Quakes finally realized that they were a man up because the way that they were playing, at least when they were a man up for the first 20 minutes, they didn't look like they were the one. It looked like they were the one that were a man down, and they finally showed some urgency in stoppage time, but unfortunately, it was just too little, too late, despite trying to press for the winner. As in the end, it ends in a scoreless draw in this one. Shots in this one, 12 shots compared to 11 that the Quakes had. No shots on goal compared to 5 that the Rapids had, because again, hitting the post doesn't count as a shot on goal. Free shots off target for the 8 that the Quakes had. Free shots that was blocked for the 4 that the Rapids had, and possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that the Quakes has in this game. And the way I look at this is that I feel like it was a miss opportunity, but also the same time, very fortunate for the Quakes. The missed opportunity is definitely with them being a man up, and they could have definitely done something. But just the fortunate part is the fact that yeah, they were playing so poorly when they were even up a man that Daniel just single handedly saved them. Like he literally have stole 4 points for the Quakes in these last two games. In terms of his performance against Seattle, coming up with some big save, and the same goes in this one. And like I said, I know it's still early. It's only two games, but man, he is a guy that I think now for the first time in a long time that I actually have some trust in terms of a goalkeeper for the Quakes between the stake, because when you look at the last couple of goalkeepers that comes from the Quakes ever since David Bingham left, Andrew Tarbell, Daniel Vega, and then JT Marskowski, none of them really gave me a lot of trust that they can. So I mean, some of them did have some good game, but not at the rate as what I'm seeing with Daniel right now. And I would also like to say that he's also kind of proved me wrong in terms of what happened early in this season, because when he came into this team, he was very shaky to a point where I even at one point felt about how it looks like is his name Daniel because of the fact that he's just kind of an impersonator of Daniel Vega, but man, he has proven me wrong in these last two games, and hopefully that will continue because yeah, it's safe to say that he's gonna have to do that, especially with the Quakes backline being bad, especially whenever they're on the road. But that being said, moving on into the last game on this board is Vancouver and Sporting KC. So this was also another game that there was some controversy, and Whitecaps fan will definitely not be happy with the way that they were screwed over of a goal in this one, and I don't blame them because yeah, there was definitely a very controversial goal that probably shouldn't be disallowed in this game, but we'll get to that. So early on, there was actually a VAR check in the 7th minute to see if Castellanos actually got a straight red and get his second red card this season, but they did go to VAR and there was no dog so in that. Now that I think it was the correct call because I think there was also one Whitecaps player there, and also it just looks like it was just kind of a tussle between Castellanos and Cordova for the ball there. So yeah, I think in the end it was the right call to just give Castellanos a yellow card there, but. In the 12th minute, Gressa would hit one right to McIntosh before Polito would hit one right to Takioka. But then in the 20th minute, he would be on target as he scored here from Tommy from the corner. Lovely delivery there from the corner from Eric Tommy, and even a better looping header, just looping it over Takioka's head. And yeah, Sporting KC were leading 1-0. And then we get to the controversy, and this is where it gets a lot of Whitecaps fan angry because in the 23rd minute, he ties the game instantly for the Whitecaps, but VAR says no. And apparently they said no because Blackman was interfering with the play. And notice I put quotation mark with was, and anytime when I do that, you know that I don't agree with the call. But yeah, he looked like they said that he was interfering with the play and was in an offside side position. And again, there's a couple of things that I also want to say before I get talk a little bit deeper with this is the fact that yes, I know there was a defender behind him, but anytime when you're a player and you're behind a goalkeeper, you're going to be called as offside. That's kind of how it is in the rule book. But what is not in the rule book is what we saw in this one because you can clearly see it didn't look like Blackman interfere with the play. Like I also think that he wasn't even anywhere close to near when that ball was in. I mean, normally this season we have seen before when a shot comes in and it maybe either took a deflection off of a tagger that was in an offside position or took no deflection, but it was pretty clear that he screened the keeper or interfered with the play. That I can understand. I don't understand about this one. I really truly don't, especially with the way that it just looked like it was just two. It was Blackman and another Sporting KC defender kind of tango up with each other, and by the time that Blackman got up, he was way away from the play. He was in nowhere where shape that he was interfering in that. So yeah, absolutely a call that was not correct, and that again I can understand why Whitecaps said we're up in arms about that, and they probably could have been really be up in arms if they would have lost this game too. But nevertheless, Gall did put it wide from close, and despite getting hard done by the referee decision, Vancouver was pushing for the equalizer. But we do head to halftime with Vancouver, or with Sporting KC leading 1-0. Now in the second half, almost had 1-1 because again, that goal should have been stand, and it should have been 1-1 heading into halftime. But in the second half, Volader would hit it wide from close range before McIntosh would deny White as he pushed that one onto the post. And again, that came off a bad turnover against Sporting KC, and that is a big no to do, especially against Vancouver, knowing that they're a team love to go on the transition and love to win to take advantage of those silly turnover by their opposition. Though Johnny's did hit one right to Takaoka before in the 85th minute. Penalty was given to Vancouver as VAR actually overturned the original call and deemed that Volader brought down on Caicedo in the box. I mean, that was clear as daylight. Like if they didn't overturn that one, I have a feeling BC plays will be in up and arm, and the certain ref you suck at a chin will definitely be ringing out inside BC play. But it was given, and Ryan Gall, of course, after getting that goal that was wrongly disallowed in the 23rd minute, he got a chance from the spot and he buries it. So that ties the game up at 1 apiece. Though Kinda did try to restore the lead for Sporting, but he missed a free header from close. Yeah, that's going to be one that he's going to be thinking about. And the same goes for Caicedo. He was wide open in the back post, but he just could not put that volley on target as he missed high there from the back post, as in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw in this one. 12 shots committed, 11 that Vancouver has. 3 shots on goal compared to 2 that Sporting KC had. 5 shots off target for the 3 that the Whitecaps had. Both teams had 5 shots that was blocked and possession-wise. 55% possession compared to 45% possession that Sporting KC has. And, I know Whitecaps fans want to not be happy because, with that goal, they probably would have won this game. But overall, I think when you look at the balance of play, I think a draw is only fair for both of these teams. And now it's going to be interesting to see for the Whitecaps now that they going to focus on the Canadian Championship. Which, by the way, they didn't really rest a lot of guys. Which again, I'm not that surprised because Vanni Sartini isn't really a head coach that usually rests a lot of guys. Even doing their CCL run, they were still putting a lot of their starters, and we'll see how they would do against Montreal in that Canadian Championship final. But for Sporting KC, again, they kind of got a refereeing decision kind of gone in favor of them. But also, I think they'll be happy to walk away with a point. And again, with just so many games that they've been playing, and when you're on the road team and for all these road teams that are near the end of just a brutal stretch of this schedule, I think they're probably relieved that they can get a point on the road. So that's kind of the case for Peter Remy's team. But that being said, that is pretty much it for all the games I've review for this week and part 2 of reviewing these 5 games that finish off the Saturday night action of match week number 17. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 5 games? And again, I'm going to do the emotion index pretty soon, as we have now pretty much almost hit the halfway point. I mean, technically it's the halfway point because it's match week number 17, but most teams are only on 15 and 16 games. It's kind of funny the fact that the league calls it match week number 17, even though nobody has played up to 17 games. But we're pretty close in terms of the halfway point, and I'll definitely do an emotion index looking at how each of these teams or how each fan base will feel about their team as we hit the halfway point of this season. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.